even until 90s, most of the trading floors were actual floors. You had to trade products there. Or we had by a phone call or via the platforms of the banks, and essentially it was like an email.
I'm an individual, I want to buy an apartment, right? Every process that's involved in that, let's talk about how blockchain can help a real estate transaction. Like I want to buy an apartment, or I want to rent an apartment, I want to buy an apartment.
It sounds so basic and so straightforward, but it's not.
Here we are, another podcast session, Financial Frontiers. My guest today is Yiannis Menelaou.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dinos.
Thank you, Yanni, for your time over here. We have worked in the past, dating back to 2017 or 2016, if I recall correctly, when we first met. We're going to talk about our experiences here. Let's first hear more about you, your experience, how you're involved in the industry. You're a lecturer, you're a whatever it is. Let's hear who Yiannis Menelaou is, and let's go.
All right, thanks a lot, Dinos, first of all, for the kind invite. I'm Yiannis. Few things about myself, although that's not the most appropriate thing to do, talk about yourself. I started my career back in London as a securities trader. I used to trade different derivatives like bonds, equities, stock indices, some exotics, and different crazy products. It was a period it was a very interesting period post-crisis, or somewhere in between of the crisis of 2007 and 2009. And then I started getting involved in more investment projects, more technology projects, crypto projects, and here we are today in the financial services space. So I have been director on the first crypto exchange of Switzerland, Laiki. It's a big group that still serves big institutions like banks. So some of the projects of the crypto projects, blockchain projects that some of the major European banks done came through this initiative. I was also the founding member of the Cyprus Blockchain Association, which is the national body for blockchain technologies and crypto assets. And at the same time, as Cyprus, we have also participated and founded also the European Blocktech Federation, which is the national association of the Association of the National Associations for Blockchain and Cryptos that is based in Brussels. And that's the body representing 18 different countries that lately and recently was involved and collaborated also with other initiatives like the European blockchain infrastructure and other similar ones.
That's impressive, Yanni. So when did all that start? How long has this been?
Without disclosing my age, first of all.
That's what my intent was.
Yeah, it's been over a decade, more or less, but the period, it doesn't matter if you've been in the industry for 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years. We all experience that in the last 10 years, actually, the progress, the evolution of the whole technology space, the investment space, was rapid. I mean, the things that have changed in the last 10 years didn't change all the previous 20 or 30 years before. We are blessed being in this, living in this moment. There is so much growth in every aspect of the economy. That's why we're part of the fourth industrial revolution. And it's very interesting actually to be here.
I totally agree, and we've got a lot to pick out of your brain over here, I think, from your experiences. And let's start with So Liquor is I didn't know that it was the first blockchain in Switzerland. That's where that was how we met, with my involvement as well in Liquor and in FINMA. So Liquor, that was in 2015. So like before many of these exchanges existed, these big exchanges existed. Even that was quite innovative for the time, and a really interesting project.
Actually, if I may say a few things about that, it's been very innovative because of the simple reason back in 2015 or 2013, when the whole concept, the whole idea behind having a crypto exchange, but not just for the crypto transactions, scale that up to other blockchain applications as well. It was too early. Back in 2015, it was just blockchain and possibly a few other small projects. Bitcoin blockchain and some other small projects. We didn't have Ethereum, and we didn't have all of those crazy asset classes, different blockchains that we have nowadays. For us, back in the days, we started building everything on the Bitcoin blockchain, which was like a very basic blockchain on one end, but through some crazy ideas around that, you could easily build up your own solutions around Bitcoin blockchain back in the days.
Yeah, and without getting too much technical, I think let's dig into that. The blockchain as a technology, and back then, so I think it's a good opportunity over here maybe to discuss it. And there's a lot of material out there. There's a lot of content out there. But let's talk about it with you being a professional in the industry. We have Bitcoin, which is one example case of what blockchain technology can do, and how it can revolutionize and how it can help humanity generally. And there's so many different angles, I guess, and perspectives to look at what blockchain is. And when you talk about blockchain, most I believe, this is at least the feeling that I get, that most people always link that to Bitcoin, right? And there were a few things you touched there. So you spoke about a Bitcoin blockchain, and then you mentioned Ethereum and so on. So let's talk about, and let's split it up, right? You've got cryptocurrency, which is one project, interesting project, as a use case on how blockchain can be used and leveraged as a technology. And then you've also obviously got the different types of blockchain.
That's correct.
And you mentioned Bitcoin as a blockchain which is outdated, so to speak. It was built for the use case of Bitcoin. It works in a specific way. Let's dig into that. So starting first with cryptocurrency as a currency, and then a blockchain and the different use cases and how that can be used generally speaking.
All right. Fair enough, because it's a technical discussion, and it's always nice to explain the very basics, so we have the common language. But I will take you a few decades back, and I will explain how blockchain is linked to how blockchain was designed, the idea behind blockchain back in the days, and all of those things. So for those who don't know, actually Bitcoin blockchain was the first blockchain as presented globally back in 2009. It was the first one that it was introduced. And since then we have hundreds, if not thousands, of different blockchains, different projects that managed to raise billions in US dollars value worth. So what's the idea of blockchain? Blockchain essentially it's a network that facilitates a machine-to-machine communication. And why do we need that? From the moment we have personal PCs and even academic computers for academic research, since the 70s more or less, there was the need to communicate with each another. But we need to do it in a secure way. That's because of the value of the information we share, which might be the academic work, that might be for military purposes, that might be for communication between governments, but even our personal data, our interaction. A message I send to Dinos has to be private, doesn't have to go public. So this machine-to-machine communication was always one of the most difficult tasks the software developers, the IT world had to face. And that's always going to be, by the way, one of the main issues, because technologies evolve, protocols change, so there is this need of a private, if I may say, to an extent, a method of communicating and facilitating this transfer of information from A to B and vice versa. And that was done successfully by blockchain. And the first time we had similar setup was back in the 80s. So the first blockchain that we say that we have today, which is Bitcoin blockchain, essentially it's not the first in the world. It became the most successful one and the most reputable one because, from what you mentioned, it has a very wide application and very wide impact. And that impact obviously is Bitcoin. So exchanging information, you participate in the network and you get rewards. You get a Bitcoin, which is the currency. So this machine-to-machine communication, essentially, it's under the hood. No one cares beside the technical guys. And we use Bitcoin as a method of payment, as to transfer capital easily from A to B without the need of a centralized authority, which is bank. And that's very useful, essentially, especially in the cases where I'm abroad, I'm traveling abroad, my visa is not acceptable because I'm in China, for example, and in China, visa is not number one way of payment. With a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, that's possible.
In China?
Anywhere in the world. That's the beauty of it.
So, okay, a few things there. What was the blockchain in the 80s or whatever similar technology that you mentioned that was dated back to the 80s?
Yeah, essentially back in the days, the communication networks back in the days were actually different ways of different encrypted, let's say, methods of encryption in transferring data from A to B. Most of the times, almost all of the times, it was the procedures were done in such a way to facilitate the transfers between A and B. Now, with a much more complex structure like a blockchain, you can facilitate transactions not just from A to B, from A to B to C to D, and have multiple transactions at the same time, as we call them.
That makes a lot of sense, and I think just also from my understanding over here is a good way I like to look at it is the difference, and obviously this is where the term decentralized finance comes in, where decentralized meaning I have a PC, it's my personal computer, nobody else has access to that. You have your PC, and we don't need a centralized body or system or platform to agree on a transaction. There's this single source of truth, which is mathematically based, the encryption behind a very difficult algorithm to crack. And that's a transaction that happens from my PC to your PC is verified by this single source of truth. And that's what makes it possible without having a central body to verify that transaction between us. And in this example, a central body could be a bank. And then that kind of opens up the point you brought up with China, right? Where you mentioned Visa is not accepted everywhere in China, where blockchain is acceptable generally, in China. And so, the common person, everybody knows Visa, MasterCard, right? The world works on Visa and MasterCard. That's what people know today. And which is, banking has evolved to a sense to be digital. So there's, online banking. We have access to our bank accounts digitally, and then that links up, to our physical cards where we're able to transact and, buy whatever goods or services we want in China, for example. So let's talk about that. So, and I think we've kind of touched it, what the difference is, but, the difference between Visa and MasterCard, and that is a form of digital payment, digital financial, digitally. And so is blockchain. But what is the main difference there?
Yeah, actually, it's a very good point. Just to clarify that. So back to the basics. Visa and MasterCard are essentially two American companies. Nothing more, nothing less. What they are very good at is they have very good technology for online payments. So Visa network, MasterCard network, they're actually built to facilitate payments. And that's all what those protocols do. Now, blockchain, for example, it does that as well. So any blockchain is built to facilitate different forms of transactions, either financial transactions, which are the transactions of Visa, MasterCard, or non-financial transactions. What is a non-financial transaction? For example, a message I sent to Dinos, for example. That's an exchange of data. So this exchange of data is based on blockchain system, or can be based on a blockchain system. By the way, nothing is super efficient, so blockchain is not it's not fit for every purpose. Don't get me wrong, because sometimes people think like, there is a nice new technology and it's the solution to every problem. No, it's not. Just to clarify that. Going back to China, it's a brilliant example. It's a huge country. It's very different from the Western world. It's a financial power, which means they've got their own infrastructures, their own internet, their own payment networks, and all of those things. It's natural. I remember back in the 90s and early 2000s, even US and Europe were very different in terms of payments. Even nowadays, to some extent. But imagine going to China and you need to pay. Which provider are you going to use? You're going to use the local providers. Why? Because that's widely adopted over there. Beside the politics, obviously, that we all know. So a nice, interesting story about China, actually, and it's nice to go and dig into that and read more about that. China in 2018 actually proposed the whole new digital economy infrastructure, as they call it, which is basically everything going digital. So your payments, your salary is linked to your tax declarations, the money you spend, your income, your even your holiday, your approvals, your documents, any personal documents that you may need to issue. It's a fully digital economy. It's what all European countries are actually trying to achieve. And now there are different schemes and different programs that we want to have in Europe a universal database with a lot of different documents and things for our personal use. In China, that's already happening. The beautiful thing about China, for me at least, is that they managed to build most of those financial related topics and tasks on blockchain. Why on blockchain? Because it's easier to monitor and facilitate a wide scope of operations. So it's not just your financial transactions, it's also information about personal information about the person. For example, name, surname, where that person lives, what it does, if it needs to digitally sign any contracts. So all of those are happening in a beautiful digital environment. Obviously, it's controlled by the government. That is a centralized body, a centralized authority, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's a fully digital, it's a great solution, and the people there can do everything digitally. Do people care if it's blockchain or non-blockchain based? Not really. Does it matter? Yeah, it matters for us, the professionals, and to greater extent to the people as well. Because if you have a good, solid technology, then you can scale it up, you can expand it, and you can easily connect it to more international networks and connect the world essentially one day.
I think Estonia is also making some good progress with as far as blockchain and moving things digitally, digital transformation, so to speak. They're quite progressed. And also in Cyprus, right, we've got this movement. And as you mentioned, you're part of these associations, and congrats on that. The Cyprus Blockchain Association, which you started.
I'm one of the founding members.
One of the founding members, which is, these are all great initiatives, and just to kind of put practical examples in where you mentioned, does the consumer, the standard citizen care whether it's blockchain or not? I think they don't care what is behind it, but I think they do care in terms of the convenience that it will open up for them, for each individual. And convenience meaning, we can bring so many different examples. And as you mentioned, one example is the ID of a person, first name, last name, where the person lives, their ID, and so on. And in the industry that we're involved in, we know the tedious task of doing KYC, right? So you want to register and do trading, and you have to go through this KYC process. And some businesses, some brokerage firms, financial institutions are really strict, and they ask for a whole lot of stuff. And you need to do this over and over. Open a bank account. Where blockchain, the convenience there is once you're verified on the blockchain as an individual, any organization you go to there, they've never met you before. It's just, what's your blockchain presence?
Yeah.
Click, done. We don't need to ask you for proof of payment. We don't need to ask you for, proof of address. We don't need to ask you for proof of ID or any of that. It's already been verified. It's on the blockchain. You're good to go. And that's a big convenience. And I think another example, and we had discussed this a little bit before, and I'll let you. This is a beautiful example. I think we can bring real estate, right? Run through that. You'd be better to kind of explain the different nuances, for each different organization, each body that's involved in a standard transaction. I'm an individual. I want to buy an apartment, right? Every process that's involved in that. Let's talk about how blockchain can help a real estate transaction. Like I want to buy an apartment, or I want to rent an apartment. I want to buy an apartment.
It sounds so basic and so straightforward, but it's not. You have to sign documents, your agreements that you're going to buy something. You have to notarize them. You have to send them to the bank, to different authorities, tax authorities, VAT authorities, and so on and so forth. So you involve a notary, you involve lawyers, and then you got the approval that everything is okay. You submit them to the registry house, which is the land registry in Cyprus, for example. So the contract is verified. They give you imprinted piece of paper documenting that they have accepted the contract. And then you have also you've got the legal, the governmental, and the financial. So for the financial, you have to go to the bank, again send the contract, send KYC, which is kind of absurd because you're already a client of the bank, and for every new process you do, they still ask you about your documents, about the same documents again and again and again. And then do financial transactions. When you buy a property, if it's once-off payment, then the bank issues a payment, or they do the transaction from you to the seller. Then you take that. You might need to take that to the land registry again to verify the transaction, and things start to become very complicated. And imagine in some of those procedures, you have to go physically there. You need to spend time. But imagine having a digital environment where everything is secure, and the only thing is either your biometrics, your eyes, your fingerprints, and that's it. That's all what I need. I use my fingerprint, and the bank immediately knows if I'm able to own this property. Everything should be automated. How can that be achieved? You mentioned before that you can have the personal data on blockchain or off blockchain, but using some blockchain security measures to facilitate that. Indeed, it's Yiannis. It has this credit scoring, this financial capacity. It can buy this property, and that's all what is needed. Nothing else. Contract should be very easy. I mean, buying a property, it's a very structured thing. This can be tokenized, for example. It can be a digital product, a digital contract. And that's it pretty much. I mean, we can create all of those different steps in a digital environment that might be, most of the times can be on blockchain. And the only thing it's my will that is needed, it's my willingness to press the button or give my fingerprint and verify the transaction. And that's indeed the action I want to have. I need to buy a property. I want to buy a property. I do this thing with my thumb, and then everything should go ahead.
Yeah, and that links up into so much depth. Like each organization has their, details and their, intricacies with regard to, what they need to do on their side. Like for the bank, for example, if it's a loan that they need to give out to an individual, then the credit rating of an individual, all of that can be verifiable on the blockchain. And I think so the main takeaway is the difference, and as you mentioned, Visa, MasterCard, banks, those are all built specifically for only one single use case, and that's to transfer money from one to another. Number moves out of one account and goes into another. That's it. It cannot facilitate all the stuff that you're mentioning over here with the blockchain, where blockchain is more generic and, with the use of smart contracts. You can tie in so many other use cases and, do a really truly true digital transformation of a country, like, as you mentioned, China's done, which is so interesting.
By the way, in the example that we just gave, the building a fully digital infrastructure obviously it involves different technologies, and it has to involve different technologies. So when, again, not just to say that blockchain, any kind of blockchain, it's the solution for everything. It can interact, it can provide solutions to all of those different steps that we said. But there is a need for other technologies as well. And we're having this discussion now also because we have seen the evolution of the mobile phones in the last 10 years. Nowadays, everybody's using biometrics on the mobile phone. If we didn't have biometrics back in the days, things would have been very different. We might have only been focusing on the cryptocurrency trading, for example. And that was the case, to be honest. Until recently, everybody was interested on how to trade, how to make money out of this space, and all the other use cases were kind of fragmented or not very, not to the extent, let's say, that they are applicable in our daily lives.
Yeah, but I mean, this applies to anything. Any technology or anything new, where there's no blueprint to follow, will only progress as much as, the people behind technically, or, the professionals behind it push it. So you mentioned mobiles. The mobile phone in 1996, that Motorola brick, I don't know if antenna is so different to the smartphone we're looking at today, and that's because innovators, Steve Jobs obviously is a big name there, that pushed the boundaries and took it to another level. That's to any that applies anywhere. Blockchain, if we don't push, like if the professionals behind it don't push the boundaries of its what it's capable of, it's going to remain, as you mentioned, just as a crypto currency.
Correct.
So in the Cyprus Blockchain Association, let's talk about that a little bit. What are we doing there? What are you? Not we. I mean, not you. I mean, what are you doing there? What's the goal? And how is that going to change Cyprus and Europe and the world?
Actually, the idea behind the Cyprus Blockchain Association was like any other association, to bring the professionals together, create a body that generates knowledge, connects the professionals, be an advisory body for governments or even the private sector when needed. And that's what we have been doing over the years. Why blockchain? Several people of us were involved in the blockchain space. And again, as I mentioned, although the research about machine-to-machine communication has always been key topic in the universities, in the IT world, etc., the blockchain itself, the Bitcoin blockchain, was promoted as blockchain in 2009, and it got its hype around 2016, 2017. And since then, everybody talks about cryptos, blockchain, and all of those things. Luckily enough, we have brilliant people on the island in Cyprus that were actually leaders in the space, and I dare to say that. We were first movers, first innovators, and myself as well, I was blessed to have the opportunity to work with you, of course, and other professional people in the space doing international projects all around the world, in the US, Europe, in Singapore, in Asia, different countries. So at least personally, I always wanted to try and create this community and make Cyprus like a special place where we can create a unique industry around that. And that's not only related to crypto and financial services, but also in academic research, and innovative technology. So, and I think that's what we have achieved. We have the University of Nicosia doing several degrees, and it was the first university globally that had a degree on cryptos and blockchain, which I was also honored to be part of it for several years. And we put Cyprus on the map. So we participated in different national initiatives in Cyprus, all around Europe, in Asia as well. We were part of the European Blockchain Services Infrastructure, the EPSI, which is essentially the body that has the regulatory framework and the infrastructure, the technological infrastructure for the European blockchain services, which there are several projects now being built on that.
Which one was that? Sorry, I missed it.
European Blockchain Services Infrastructure. And Europe is working actively in several blockchain projects. Because it's one of the best ways to connect Europe for data sharing, either KYC or financial transactions or any other problems. For example, for the payments industry and for the banking payments specifically, Europe managed to have same day transactions in the last decade, and that was something that Europe always wanted to have. But we never managed to succeed on that. And even nowadays, we have SEPA, for example, you can do transactions same day. And sometimes some of the transactions are not processed the same day, but they should have been automated on the same day.
Because with SEPA, as much as they want to say that it's same day, it's reliant on people.
Exactly.
So if I send you a SEPA transaction
in the afternoon.
Yes, in the afternoon from my account in Brussels, right, to your Cyprus account in the afternoon, and then the next day is Labor Day, whatever it is. It's not going to happen. So the bank employee needs to see it and approve it.
All of those small things that we think they are, the economy, it's still young. It's still being developed. For example, just to go back in the history and share some knowledge. So we have in the 70s, we had the first electronic trading, which was on NASDAQ. And it was just for US markets, US stocks specifically. The evolution of technology helped, but even until 90s, most of the trading floors were actual floors. You had to trade products there. Or we had by a phone call or via the platforms of the banks. And essentially, it was like an emailing system. So even a bank had a trading platform. You're actually putting all the information, all the details. I want to buy this stock. I want to buy those bonds. But it was a human in the back end clicking another button to send another order somewhere else, and then another person to execute, and all of those things. Since 2000, actually, we had the transition from the professional trading, digital trading, to online digital trading to more retail and home users. And then we had the liberalization of the currency markets as well around that time. I mean liberalization because there are also academic terms for that. I mean the free online trading of currencies, for example, that happened in the early 2000s, just 20 years ago. It wasn't far. And actually the evolution of that space, the CFD industry, for example, it's been in the last 15 years. So it's something very new. Then the cryptos, in the last 10 years. It's been around 14 years, but in the last not even 10 years, actually, we have seen so much growth in the trading activity. It's been a lot of evolution, but the economy is still young, still new. And the users, we are now transitioning to the new phase where we can do everything through mobile phone. And there is still also need for personal investing through mobile phone. That's why there are a lot of fintechs out there trying to solve those issues nowadays.
Yeah, it's incredible what technology is doing, and within the last 20 years, the strides that are happening. If you think, I don't know how many hundreds of years ago, where salary, right? The term salary comes from salt, which is how people were paid in blocks of salt.
Yeah, the Asian Romans.
Yes, because of its, I think, durability. That it doesn't deteriorate easy, and so that is a big. If you compare 20 years, imagine what's going to happen in 100 years on.
It's amazing.
What's happening,
It's
on
amazing.
technology. Let's talk about your involvement in the university, Yanni. What were you lecturing there?
I used to lecture. I actually, if you allow me to say a very brief story around that. So it was 2012 and 2013 when we were working on some crypto-related projects, which were involving also payments, card payments, online payments for e-commerce, deposit accounts. So essentially a new economy beyond the traditional banking that we know it today. So it's like having the operations of the bank, but in a fully digital environment of a digital bank, let's say. Digital bank, but crypto blockchain-based digital bank. And back in the days, it was just Bitcoin and 2 or 3 other blockchains. We had different cryptos, but not a lot of blockchains back in the days. And we managed to develop that. Obviously, through that, we had done a lot of research on how to develop all of those things, from technology research, risk management, portfolio management, in order to be able to manage all of those operations at the same time. Some of us were based in Cyprus, some of us were based abroad, New York, and other locations. And all started working together. And we were meeting. I met one friend, the other friend met another one, the other friend met another one in New York. And that's how more or less everything happened. And one of those friends actually was one of the owners of the University of Nicosia, and some professors there as well. And we thought about the idea of having some courses or even a degree. It came later. Some courses initially about cryptos. And through the discussion was like, why don't we do a degree on that? And some of the professors also, most of those actually, being educated in the US and have been working in the US in the technology field as well. They saw the potential. They believed in that. And for me, coming from the industry, we joined forces and we sat down, we saw the requirements of the Ministry of Education, and we started preparing the structure of the master's degree. Before that, a year before that, actually, the university started getting payments in Bitcoin. And it was the first university getting paid in Bitcoin, in crypto. For its
kudos to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and we did this degree. It was challenging, like any other project that you firstly launch it. but we had very interesting graduates from governments, from central banks, from big institutions. So in the first 2 years I was teaching there, I met very interesting people. And nowadays it's part of the other academic degrees of business school, of technology school, and all of those things. So it's a combination of a lot of different things. And my field was obviously financial markets and portfolio management.
That is awesome. That's really awesome and a good initiative. Well, congrats there. So portfolio management. Let's talk about portfolio management. You mentioned before portfolio management theory. When I think about portfolio management, it's basically managing your finances. Whether that you do that yourself and you've got the knowledge and the knowledge basically on how to manage your own finances, your portfolio, or outsourced to professionals who can do it for you. And obviously this has changed in shape and form over the years. I'm sure portfolio management existed in some way or form 100 years ago or 200 years ago as a service, maybe. I don't know. But let's talk about your knowledge. Let's share some knowledge here about portfolio management theory.
Actually, that's what I have studied. That was most of my jobs were involved in that, and it has a special place in my heart, let's say, although because I don't do it now actively. And it's one of those things that the research around that and the impact it has, it's in the shadow of other things like technology, like AI. Nowadays, everybody talks about AI, but AI is successful because it's using different models, either for predictive markets, which is mathematics, or for cryptography, or for programming languages. So AI, it's an amazing technology, but it has value if it's built on top of a knowledge that's coming from several fields. So one of those fields nowadays is the portfolio management theory that has changed massively in the last 10 years. And one may think that it's very theoretical. Why should we care about that? The basis of portfolio management theory is that we generate income, we save some money in the bank, and the money is saved there, or the pension schemes. So on a monthly basis, from our salaries, there is a cut that is sent to the government for our pension. So we have two options. We save the money in a bank account, the money we saved, let's say 100K in 30 years' time, and I get that money in 30 years' time, at 100,000 pounds or euros or whatever that is. Now, will the value of money after 30 years be the same? So is the 100,000 euros today worth the same after 30 years? The simple answer is no. So we need to do something about that in order to make that money valuable. Now, how much value that money will have, we don't know accurately enough, but we have a very, very good understanding on what the value of money will be after 10, 20, or 30 years' time. And that's why we need portfolio management and modern portfolio management theories in order to actually try to use different techniques, different strategies in the capital markets. We live in a capital world to give value to our wealth. In the same way we store money for our future, the same process the governments do. They save money or they raise capital now to repay it later, to finance their daily operations. So governments actually raise capital from taxes or from the capital markets. They issue bonds, they raise capital, they use that capital, and they have to repay that back in a year's time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, whatever that is. So there is need to do some operations in order to make sure that the money will have value in the future. That's the fundamental reason why we have portfolio management theory. Now, the portfolio management theory actually was developed from the moment we had the capital markets, the stock markets, the different products that we trade, the insurance products, and all of those things. So the insurance industry and the stock market was developed in the early 1900s. But we had the digital markets from the 70s with NASDAQ, and that's essentially where we started really collecting data in centralized locations, and that's actually the moment where data started making some sense to us, to the researchers, to us, so on and so forth. So from the 70s, we started analyzing the stock markets, trying to predict the prices. Will that stock go up, go down? Why? And all of those things. And that's how the modern portfolio theory, as we call it, was developed in the 70s and 80s. So again, it's something new. It's not something that happened 500 years ago. It's something that was developed in the 70s and 80s. Now, in the 90s and early 2000s, actually, we started having the derivatives, more structured products, and the portfolio theory started to cover all of those aspects as well. But again, the main focus was to predict the prices. Will the price go up? Will the price go down? Finding correlations, doing diversification, geographical diversification, and all of those things. And before we discuss about the digital markets in the late 90s, early 2000s, because it was the time the technology was allowing that kind of business to operate and having data and do research around that. So from stocks and bonds, then we went to more synthetics, credit products, derivatives, and other things, which might have been also, to a great extent, those have been also the reason of the recent financial crisis of 2007 and 2009. And that was the knowledge we had about that, trying to predict the prices, correlations, the impact those have. Now, what's next? Now we have more products. We have cryptos. We have inflation. We have mobile phones, how mobile phones affect us. For example, the young people react differently. They like to do business differently. They like to spend money differently on social media, on technology platforms. So do we care about the price of stock nowadays, or do we care about inflation? Do we care about the growth of Europe versus the growth of China, or do we care about the growth of Europe, for example? How is value created? How is wealth created in one region versus the other? And you start understanding that things become much more complex than try to find the where price will go. Will that simply go up or down? Will I make money from buying an Apple stock or not? So the decision nowadays, it's not as simple as that. So in the recent years, big institutions like Goldman Sachs, the tier banks, Fidelity, and all of those smart people are actually trying to understand what's the new way of doing investments and have a value creation in the world. And nowadays we progress from, again, the predictive market of predicting the prices to finding the so-called risk premia. So what premium, what excess can I generate through an investment? And then you try to, how do you do that? You try to correlate it with, as I mentioned, with other indices that measure the economy, like CPI, Consumer Price Index, inflation, the correlation I said between the growth of one country to another country. For example, young people living in that area generate more wealth because they are more active on YouTube or social media, for example, and all of those things.
See, there's so much that you said there that we can cover on, and I think for me, to the basic, let's call it, conclusion for me, there's what is the purpose of all of that, right? The purpose of all of that, getting into all of these details, these technical details, with regard to portfolio management and sustaining wealth, right? Is
it's exactly what you said: sustaining wealth or making wealth.
And the purpose of that is to cover the basic needs for any individual who, obviously in the early years, school, whatever it is, you go to university, you learn, and then, from your whatever 25 to 65 is when you make your money, and then to live through your pension and always have the same value. So that example that you said, what is 100,000 euro or pounds today? What can it buy me in terms of basic needs? I need food, I need shelter, I need transportation.
Yeah, but that's exactly that. But sorry to interrupt, but that's not just after 30 years. It's after 30 days sometimes.
Yeah.
We had COVID nowadays. So what's the impact of COVID? It stagnated the whole world. Do governments have money to support the economies? How do they do that? What's the value creation? What kind of tools do they have? And all of those things. And that's the purpose of the modern portfolio theory, is how to balance the two and create value and manage the risks.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's obviously to cover the basic needs throughout your entire life. And the skill, let's call it that portfolio management the talent is sustaining the wealth throughout. And this, what you mentioned, what the governments are quite confused about, or still we don't know the answers, is how things are evolving, right? Are derivatives today, or the price of Apple, is that important? And how much importance does that have in portfolio management? Whereas there could be some new form of wealth that we still don't know yet, right? With technology, as we said, infrastructure is changing. Bandwidth is opening up. The whole of Africa still needs to get connected, and then we've got this. The metaverse today seems like a failed project, but it's not done yet, right? It's this augmented reality. It's too early. It's a massive thing, right? That's changing the whole world, right? Think how long it took to build roads and the landlines and the infrastructure that takes decades and long. So to build this virtual world, or at least an augmented reality, and who knows what can come from that in terms of value, and how portfolio management is going to change in 100 years from today, where the infrastructure allows, where we're able to do a podcast like this. You sitting at home, I'm sitting wherever it is, and then we're actually looking at each other, but it's a hologram. I go like this, my hand goes right through you, So there's so much to talk about there.
At least just sum up, and on the modern portfolio management theories, essentially, it's also nowadays, with the use of technology, they are built those new models that we didn't know in the past, and those new models actually help understand also the current status and be able to react immediately if there is a slowdown in an economy, if there is impact because of an external shock, because of the war in Ukraine, for example, how will the economy be impacted and how long potentially will be impacted? We didn't have the knowledge in the past to do that. And now we have great knowledge. We don't have the solution to everything, but we have great knowledge. So academic research on the portfolio theory is there. And how and why can we react quickly? It's because we have other technologies as well. So we have solutions and softwares for big data nowadays. So we can analyze that data almost instantly and see reactions. And we can even use AI models based on those modern theories to be more precise in their predictions. Very briefly, I remember back in the days in 2012, when it was around the time I came back to Cyprus, one of my first projects was about AI predicting some stock prices and some currency prices. In the long run, it was successful. In the medium and short run, its predictions were very broad. The reason, it's simple. It's because the model was based on models on knowledge that we had back then, which was what I mentioned, trying to predict the prices. Will the price go up or down? Now you don't care if the prices go up or down. And the impact in the real economy is affected anyhow. My prices might go up, but it's because of Microsoft is doing well. But how does it impact Cyprus or the UK, for example?
Right. So interesting. So, Yanni, it's been already an hour.
Yeah.
We've been talking. Let's do some closing comments, Yanni. Tell us, where can we find Yanni? What are you up to today? Nowadays? What are the future plans? Let's do some closing comments. Thank you for your time. It was a great talk, and as always, I'm fine that these podcasts. I think maybe I should open it up and make it a 2 or 3 hour. But I respect your time as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Dinos, as well. It's been a pleasure, and it's always nice to, together we discuss hours and hours non-stop. But we can have more podcasts if needed. It's you can find me on LinkedIn, on social media, primarily on LinkedIn. I'm always available. Online, because physically it's I'm always open for a coffee, obviously, but we all travel here and there. It's very exciting, the moments we live now in. That's really the fourth industrial revolution. It's been in the last 10 years, it's been the evolution of mobile technologies, fast data, AI, autonomous vehicles, blockchain technologies, modern portfolio management theories, modern finance theories in general. All of those, there is the progress in academia in every single sector, and it's applicable to the real life through the blending the knowledge with technology, which is amazing. In the last 10 years, amazing things happen, and I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in the next 10 years. It's so fascinating. And we're here, we're always learning, and it's exciting to be in this field.
Yes, 100% agree. Thank you so much, Andy, for
Thanks
your
a lot,
time.
Dinos.
And we'll do this again.
Sure.
It's a wrap.